Greetings. Welcome back, everyone. Now, after our refreshing coffee break, we will move on to the topic of the work of the Research Integrity and Ethics Office by Dr. Willie Koh, Director of Research Integrity and Ethics, Nanyang Technological University. Please welcome Dr. Koh to the stage.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me today to give this talk. So my talk will be on the work of the Research Integrity and Ethics Office, or RIEO for short. But I think I will focus more on the governance aspect of the RIEO office, and I'll be sharing our experience in setting up such a function in NTU. And of course, sharing our experience over the past 5 or 6 years, but we're not saying that we are the role model. I mean, we are still trying to improve ourselves. And for the Thai participants, of course, you can learn from, any of the American universities, for example, who are very much more well-established than RIEO in NTU. Okay. So a little bit of self-introduction. So this is my LinkedIn profile, and of course the photograph there hasn't been changed for many years. So I have a scientific background, so I used to work on HIV and dengue viruses. And then after a short stint as a postdoc fellow, I decided to leave bench research. And then I jumped into research administration and research support in A-STAR. I was doing like international partnerships, similar to the NASDA in Thailand. And after that, I moved to the hospital to do clinical trials, clinical management. So that's why I got exposed to ethics, as well as doing a lot of contracting work for the clinical trials. And then that's when I was asked to help to set up this Geriatrics Institute, which is just next door to the hospital. So I helped to set up the research administration function within the Geriatrics Institute. And I think that's also why I think NTU then hired me, because I've got this experience in starting up offices. So at the time, NTU wanted to set up the RIEO. So tell you a little bit more about the process. Yeah. So RIEO was established about 6 years ago with the two key aims. First one is to develop the policies and governance frameworks for the whole of NTU. And the second one is, of course, to promulgate the policies and the frameworks across the research community. So NTU is like any big university, just like in Thailand. Chula, also a big university. So we have a college structure across many disciplines. And immediately in my first year, I realized how difficult the task is going to be, because immediately the professors from the arts and humanities then immediately come and tell me that, a lot of the research integrity policies don't apply to them. It's only more for the STEM disciplines. So for example, humanities might have different criteria for authorship, for example, or including the supervision or even data. They say they don't have data in the non-STEM disciplines. So I knew that my work is going to be hard, because a standard policy might not be applicable to the different disciplines that we have in NTU. So that's challenge number one. And then number two, I think this morning we were talking about headcount. So actually, when the office was set up, we borrowed people from elsewhere. So you see the manager and the executive, we borrowed from the IRB side, which was actually previously in another office called the Research Support Office. And then for the ICOOK, which we also took people from the animal facility. So the only new headcount was actually my position, where it was newly created to set up the framework and education and outreach. All the rest were borrowed. So in terms of the first objective of the policy, so these are all the policies that comes under RIEO. Research integrity policy, the research data policy, and then we also got the procedures to investigate misconduct. So all these are all publicly available on our website. So in an effort to be more transparent towards our stakeholders and our community. So basically, the research integrity policy is not, I suppose it's the same for most universities. It talks about the university code of conduct, and the objective is, of course, responsible conduct of research. And in terms of the policy also talks about the governance. So we have the research integrity officer, which is Roderick Bates, and then also supported with this research integrity committee. So I guess it's not much different from Chula. I see you also have a similar committee. And for our committee, what we have is we ask all the chairs of research from all the schools to form the research integrity committee. And all of us will then report up to the vice president of research. In our policy, we also talked about whistleblowing and the COI, which was also mentioned by Roderick Bates this morning. And on the right side, so this is basically how the governance or the reporting line goes up. So the COI, actually it changes for every investigation. So it depends on the subject matter, then we will get the relevant subject matter experts to form the COI. And also as mentioned this morning, sometimes instead of a COI, we will have a arbitration or a mediation process where we ask that all the people who are being mediated to pre-agree to the final outcome to prevent disputes and appeals to the COI outcome. Yeah. So for whistleblowing and reporting of concern, this is very similar to Chula as well. It's all published on our internet, so anybody can access it. We have the form for anybody to fill up online. So quite often we get people from both within the university as well as from outside the university to lodge their complaints or their allegations. And because all these are handled not by our office, it's handled by the legal office, they screen everything. So there is a transparency in the process. You know, it's not something that our office can pick and choose which one we want to deal with and which one we don't want to deal with. So there is a form of governance oversight with regards to reporting of concern. And then, of course, because of the big case in 2016 in Singapore, then we came out in our local newspapers to say that we have a zero tolerance to misconduct in NTU. So then I go on to the second part of the mission of RIEO, which is to have outreach to guide all the researchers. What we have in NTU is this compulsory declaration to abide by our policy. So that means for every new faculty or every new research staff that joins NTU, there is this process for them to sign a declaration that they have read the policy, they understand it, and then they will abide by it. Okay, so nobody can then come and tell us, oh, they do not know there's such a policy in place. Okay, then after that, we also have a compulsory online training program for all faculty, research staff, as well as our PhD students for them to go through so that they know all the key principles of research integrity. And of course, we also regularly organize seminars, workshops, and conferences regularly because what we found is that there are research being done which basically observe that the amount of misconduct actually doesn't improve despite training. You know, if somebody wants to do misconduct, they will do it anyway, even though they know that it's illegal to steal, for example. People will still want to steal if they want to. So what they found was useful, the research found was useful, was to have regular follow-up throughout the course of a person's career. You know, so we will have workshops and seminars a couple of times each year, and then we have regular touch points. So we also have a website where we have all our relevant guidelines. You know, this morning we talked about authorship guides, addresses and affiliations, because what we found out that when research staff leave NTU and they go on to another university, and then they might use the research outputs and then they don't attribute to NTU appropriately. So this morning we also talk about AI. So we now also have a new guideline on that as well. And we also come out with regular bulletins. In the past, we used to send it out once a month, but then now it's like once every quarter. So again, it's to keep the topic of research integrity fresh on everybody's mind, you know. This slide is about the formation of a Singapore Research Integrity Network about 5 years ago. And then this was reported in Nature. So we spoke to the editor and he says, oh, it was so good that Singapore came up with this local network. And I was actually just telling him, in Singapore, it's so easy to organize this kind of thing because there's only 6 universities and 3 healthcare clusters. You know, from one point to another point in Singapore takes only 30 minutes. It's so easy to organize things, whereas compared to Thailand, it's so big and so many institutions. So I can understand the big challenge to organize such a thing elsewhere. Okay, next we have the research data policy, which Suni already mentioned earlier. So RIEO is a key stakeholder in this research data policy, and the reason is that what we find whenever there is misconduct, it's the PI or the researcher will say that they lost all the original data. Okay, how do we know that the data is not fabricated? How do we not know that it's falsified? So we have a 10-year retention policy in NTU. Okay, we expect everybody, once a project has finished, you must store it for a minimum of 10 years. If you don't store your data for 10 years, you are actually in breach of policy. Okay. So this talks about data integrity. So yeah, so we can move on. So in collaboration with library, we can't do everything by ourselves. Okay, so a lot of the research data management framework, we depend on our partners in library as well as the research support office. So Suni showed this slide earlier. So where RIEO comes in is actually the top layer, you know, the policies and the governance. This is where RIEO comes in. We set the policy requirements so that people will follow. And then this trickles down to the library. The library will do the outreach effort at the bottom layer. So really it's a partnership across the university. So this basically just shows our RDM framework. Basically, this is just summarized on this slide. Number one, we have a 10-year retention policy. We require people to deposit the research data after they have completed their project. We require them to have a data management plan for each research project. So this one was Suni mentioned earlier. Everybody complains about it because it's just additional work to do a data management plan. So basically, it forces the PI to think about how they manage the data during the active phase of the research. And then after the research has completed, what is their plan for archiving and storage? Okay, and this is compulsory for each funded project in NTU, because if they do not complete the data management plan, the research support office will not start the funding. So basically, PIs have no choice but to complete this. Sorry, go back one. Then number three, we are safeguarding. So we come up with a repository within NTU. So quite often now, when you publish your papers in the journals will require you to also deposit your raw data onto the journal database. So not all publishers require that. So what we have done is we say, if you don't deposit your raw data elsewhere, then you must deposit it within our university repository. Okay, so again, this is all about data integrity. If there is any misconduct, then we can look into your raw data. Okay, so then we can find any evidence of falsification or fabrication. You know, we always say about this case about a research fellow who is able to generate perfect straight line graphs for an engineering project when even the machine can't even give you perfect line graph. And it turns out that the data was totally fabricated because the research fellow didn't even go into the lab in the first place. So we can check through the entry records. So with this data deposit requirement, we can also easily facilitate our investigations. Lastly, number four, we have this also a problem where research staff resigns, and then the research staff will either delete away all the research data and then bring it to his or her next institution. So data belongs to the university. Okay, so therefore, we now institute a handover checklist when a person leaves NTU. Okay, so the PI will have to check that all the raw data before a person leaves, a copy of it gets deposited in NTU. So this is our whole whole of life management plan for research data. Okay, so next is the second part of our RIEO function, which is on research ethics. So this is mainly divided into the human ethics as well as the animal ethics. So all these are all regulated by law in Singapore, so not much different than in Thailand. However, the governance framework is within NTU is quite similar. Okay, so first of all, we have the training requirements. Again, it's compulsory. Then we have the protocol review and approval. Once it's approved, there is this annual reviews of the approved protocol as well as monitoring. And then we have this requirement for incident reporting. Okay? And then right at the bottom, again, we have an investigations procedure which actually feed on to our research integrity framework. Okay, so any breach of research ethics then will follow the operating procedure for investigation. under the research integrity procedure. Of course, then this will be facilitated by the IRB chair as well as the ICOOC chair when it comes to ethics. Next. So this is just basically a graph of the approval timeline. So this is actually the operational part of the human ethics function. Researchers or the PIs will always complain that, oh, approval takes so long to approve, then they cannot start their research project. So what you can see over here is that the bar chart, so the number of approvals has been increasing over the past few years. However, the time to get it approved, we have brought it down over the past 5 years. So when we show this to all our faculty, they can see that we are really doing our best to bring our approval times down. And now it has reached a steady state of about 24 days to get IRB approval. Next. So then comes to this question, how do we know that people are complying with our policy? So it's very good, that in the first 2 years, we came up with very nice policies, we come up with very nice frameworks, we come up with very nice training requirements. Then the management started to ask, how do we know people are complying with our policy? So then comes the third function of our office is ensuring compliance. So now this is beginning to take the time and effort of our office. So broadly, you can see on the right, RIEO, basically we have to have oversight over the researchers, the research community. And then now we also have people overseeing our RIEO's activities. So really it's somebody watching over us and then us watching down on the researchers. And this is in the form of internal audits in NTU, as well as the government inspectors who will come down every year to inspect our office. So this is a typical governance framework. In most companies, they have these 3 lines of defense. First line, you expect the researchers to comply with the policy themselves. The second line is then the compliance function, where they expect an office in charge to have oversight over the researchers. Then the third line is somebody on top of the office to ensuring that the office is doing their compliance work. So these 3 lines of defense is quite standard now in a lot of companies out there, for example, like finance and banking. Yeah. So when it comes to checking of compliance, what we do is we check on the self-declaration, correct, which I mentioned at the beginning. So we obviously have 100% compliance to this because this is part of every person's onboarding process on the HR system. So they cannot run away from it. If they want to be properly onboarded, they must go through our HR system. So we use a system integrated approach in many of our processes and workflows. And then the second one is the compulsory research integrity course. And what happens in NTU is that we have to, every half a year, every 6 months, we report the compliance figures to NTU management, so to the NTU president, on the compliance figures for the online course. And then also the management have to report to the board of trustees. So we really report all the way up the command chain in NTU. In the beginning, the compliance rate was only like 50% for the research integrity course, because as you know, it's going to be really difficult to get the faculty to comply. Because everybody will say this is just increasing their work and their burden when they also have to concentrate on research and then concentrate on teaching. So we had a hard time trying to get people to comply. So we got top management to provide the support and leadership. So we say that president has, despite the president's heavy schedule and commitment, also managed to do the online course. All the deans managed to do the online course. So why is it that they can do but you cannot do? So, so now we managed to get the compliance rate up to close to 99.9%. I think like on our books right now, we only got one professor who is still not compliant, and this professor is from the non-STEM discipline. Whereas I think traditionally the STEM professors are usually more compliant. I think it's just in the nature for the STEM people, okay, we'll just do it. And then it's actually in the nature for the non-STEM to be a little bit more argumentative, and then we have to convince them. So yes, basically it took a lot of efforts from our office to track and get people to comply. Of course, then on the right side, we also have the internal audits checking on us, so then we have to force it down on the researchers. We also conduct annual reviews and monitoring for our human ethics projects, human and animal ethics projects. So in terms of summary, in terms of our office, RIEO, so we report up to management. So there's a research integrity officer, vice president of research, provost, and president. And then in the beginning, we have the research integrity as our first pillar, and then which is with supports of the research integrity committee to ensure that all the policies that is planned centrally is being cascaded down to all the different schools. And then the second pillar is the research ethics, and this is supported by the IRB committee as well as the ICOOP committee. And then 2 to 3 years later, we have got a third pillar and a fourth pillar. So the third pillar is compliance, which is now really taking up most of our time and effort. And research data is our fourth pillar now, working together with library as well as the research support office who manages all the grants. In fact, the fourth pillar is now beginning to take up a lot of our time as well, because due to the complexity in data nowadays, data is not only just in a person's laptop, it is also now in the cloud all over the world. We are concerned about data breach. So SUNY is more interested in open science, ensuring that all the data gets deposited and archived properly. Another aspect that we are now very concerned is data leakage or data breach, because some of the research data is quite confidential. Some of it is government data, with the Ministry of Defense, for example, or even flight plans from our Changi airport is being researched on. So all these are highly classified data. We are afraid of breaches. So now it's taking up a lot of time, and of course now with AI, the final research data, you don't even know whether it's real or fabricated. So that is beginning to take a lot of our time and effort. And then now it's supported by the three framework at the bottom. The first is governance. So now we have already set up our governance framework. So now we are moving to number 2, which is the compliance. And then actually most of our time and effort is on number 3, on the outreach. Okay, because we found out that without the outreach, despite all the compulsory training, people will not follow your policy. And in fact, when the regulators come down, they will ask, how do we ensure that the researchers understand your policy. So if we cannot demonstrate that we are doing outreach, we will fail our regulatory inspections. Okay, this slide is just another way to show all the various pillars that we have constructed for NTU. So one is governance policy, second one is education and training. Then after that is forming all the infrastructure and support with partnership with library and the research support office. And then the fourth is the compliance and audit. We audit the researchers, and then internal auditors will audit us. And then the last pillar is, of course, the stick approach, where we investigate the people. And of course, if there's a severe breach, then this will go to the disciplinary board. And of course, NTU, we have shown that we are not afraid to dismiss or fire a professor or research staff if it is necessary. So the 5 pillars is also embedded into our strategic plan. So on the left is our NTU 2025 strategic framework, and you can see that the 5 pillars is embedded within the foundational pillar of our strategic plan. So all this is very transparent to our faculty to highlight the importance of the research integrity and proper data management framework. We also show this diagram to our Ministry of Education and also to the funding agencies so that we communicate to them that in NTU, this is our strategy. We want to ensure that the research data coming out of NTU is reliable, is reproducible, is genuine data. We want to instill confidence in the research outputs from NTU. It's important for forming collaborations and partnerships. You know, for example, if we want to partner with Imperial College, for example, or if we also have collaborations with industry partners like Rolls-Royce or Alibaba, we want to instill confidence in them that when they give us their data, we will treat their research data seriously. So all this is all embedded into our strategic plan. Like I mentioned before, it's very important that this goes all the way to the top. So in fact, it's above the president. So even if the president is not enthusiastic about research integrity, the board has got an interest in ensuring that we manage integrity properly. So yeah, I will not go through this. So this is my last slide. So I will just summarize in a key takeaway. So number one is if you want somebody to manage this function in a university, you need to get somebody who understands academic research. So if you look at some of the American universities, some of the office is headed by a lawyer. And through our experience talking to our legal office, sometimes they don't understand anything about academic or research. You know, our lawyers are very corporate minded or very HR and finance oriented. So sometimes talking to legal people is like talking to, you know, it's like orange and apple, they can't talk together, or talking about different things. So it's very important to hire the right people for this job. Another common group of people that office try to employ is chartered accountants or chartered auditors, because auditors have got this track record of compliance. But even when we're talking to our internal auditors, they have a finance background, but again, they don't really understand the academic framework or research. So this is the number one takeaway message from me. The second one is when you roll out your policies, be prepared for people who are against your policy. And of course, we know that faculty are very strong in the university structure. They can complain to the Senate, they can complain to the president, And as Roderick Bates mentioned earlier, there are people always who will complain about the outcomes of the investigations and all that. So in fact, I told the people in my office, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a photograph of me somewhere printed out and then they start throwing arrows and darts at the photograph. So I told the people in my office to be thick-skinned and all that. We also got cases where sometimes the chief legal officer in NTU got their car scratched and all that. Because the parking lots in NTU, they label and they reserve a parking lot for the CFO, the CIO, and etc. So just be prepared that you will invite these kind of people. So it's a job hazard, hazards of this job actually. So be prepared for that. Number 3, as also mentioned by Roderick Bates, is extremely important to have a top-level management commitment. Because if your president is not supportive of all your framework, or if the board is not supportive, it's very difficult for you to roll out all your policies and frameworks. It's very difficult for you to roll out all your procedures. And worse, if your investigation outcome is not being supported by management. And if anybody, if you all follow all the retraction watch that's published like every week and all that, there are universities out there that will sweep things under the carpet. If there's any misconduct, some of the universities might try to protect their professors. So if there's this protection of professors, then why do we want to form such an office in the first place? So I think management needs to ask themselves this difficult question for when we form this office. Is it really to protect professors, or is it really to protect the university? So I think it's really to protect the reputation of the university, and we are very transparent when we communicate this to all external parties. Number 4 is, I already mentioned, online training must be supplemented with regular workshops, with regular bulletins, because the online training is only a one-time kind of thing. And really, if people want to steal, if people want to have misconduct, they will do it anyway. So we really have to, training is not enough. We need to instill a culture across the university, and this culture is, top and bottom, from the most senior people to the most junior person. We need to instill the proper culture within a large organization. Like a university is easily 10,000 staff and 30,000 students, so it needs to be across top and bottom. Last of all, this is through our experience. Very nice to have all the policies and very fanciful framework, but if nobody follows your framework, then actually you will not. Everything will just fall apart. Correct? So to ensure that things don't fall apart, there is a need for compliance checking. If the government regulators are doing it, we also have to have the second layer check within the university. So yeah, these are all the 5 messages from me. Last slide. Yes, so thank you very much for having me, and my LinkedIn profile is below. You can either send it to the email address is actually we'll send it to the office. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn if you need to. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Willie Koh. Thank you for your contribution to today's event. Your discussion on the importance and responsibilities of the Research Integrity and Ethics Office has, of course, shed light on the culture of integrity within our academic and research communities, which will prove to be a cornerstone of our academic success in the 21st century. And as for our last session of the day, we will have our kind representative from the Elsevier publication of Singapore to hold a session on research integrity in publications. So, please, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction. Because I'm going to do this presentation while online, so I'm going to share my screen first. Does it look good for you? Okay, so let me start. So good afternoon, everyone. Really nice to meet you. And my name is Shanshan, and I prefer people to call me Shan. I am an ethics expert at Elsevier and based in our Beijing office. Thank you, Professor Bays, for inviting me to present in this workshop. I am very pleased to be in this first research integrity workshop in Thailand. Today, I'm going to share with you the research integrity and publishing ethics from a publisher's perspective. My talk covers three main topics: the current publishing ethics challenges, the role of the editor, reviewer, author, and publisher in upholding the research integrity, and the corrections to the record. Okay, so let's first look at what are the main publishing ethics challenges that the industry is currently facing. Sorry, is that okay? All right. We all know how important to uphold the research integrity. However, the continuous and ethical research undermines the trust in different aspects, including the author's research, the institute, the journal, the field of science, scholarly publishing, and even in science generally. Elsewhere, as a publisher, our ongoing mission is to safeguard the research integrity by helping to facilitate a rigorous and transparent peer review and editorial process. We have very rigorous and transparent standards and correct the scientific record responsibly and transparently. Our editor sees at the heart of our ability to uphold these principles. Here are the main types of questionable research practice and ethical misconducts, which I hope will not surprise anyone on this call. We consider the practices such as citation manipulation, violations of the research standard, and disclosed conflicts of interest, no ethics approval, duplicate publication, and authorship gaming as a questionable research practice, and consider the practice more serious that may damage the scientific research like paper mills, peer review manipulation, plagiarism, fabrication, and falsification as misconducts. And you can see from this page that these activities become more serious from the bottom up. And the practice just mentioned can occur individually or simultaneously, and different and ethical behaviors can occur at many points in the research and editorial process. So you can imagine that the ethics cases can be very complex, and these behaviors are mainly related to three roles, including the author, the reviewer, and the editor. For example, authors may fabricate the data or manipulate the images when conducting the research. They may protect authorship when writing an article, may misrepresent the conflicts of interest when submitting a manuscript, and also may influence reviewers to accept the paper during the peer review. And reviewers may ask authors to add citations to their own work, and or to the journals that the reviewer is editorially affiliated, or sometimes reviewers steal the data from the author and publish it themselves. Editors may accept manuscripts in exchange for authorship or money, or may reject a manuscript from one journal in order to publish them in another. There are also some other unethical behaviors that can happen, but due to time limitation, I will not go through one by one. And nowadays, this misbehavior not just taken by researchers themselves. but also have become a systematic business practice, which we call the paper mill. Paper mills are the professional companies that offer paid publishing services to the authors. They vary their approach to ensure the success. In some cases, placing the single papers in journals and selling the authorship placement. And in other instances, they also pay editors, or more often is guest editors, to submit special issue proposals, whereby they gain the full control over the use of fake reviewers to submit the fake review reports and push the papers through to the acceptance. Paper mill papers can be fake papers describing the research that never happened, or describing the real research but with sold authorship, or describing either real or fake research but with the fake guest editor, fake reviewers, fake reviews, or even any combination of the above. The unethical practice like paper mills erode trust in science and challenge our reputation as a publisher. And for the researchers, clinicians, and the society as a whole, publication of the false articles or those with a questionable practice can lead to a substantial waste of research time and resources in following the false lead. The fake authorship, plagiarism, and citation manipulation can screw the trustworthiness and impact of the research output. And the detailed and lengthy processes for identifying the false or dubious manuscripts cause the frustration and the irritation in the research and the clinical communities. The fabricated articles undermine the public's trust in science and making it more difficult for researchers, clinicians, policymakers, governments, and others to do their job. And for publishers, the reputation of the individual journals can be damaged, leading to the loss of the submission and the delisting by the main databases. The determining and implementing responsive actions such as retractions and expressions of concern is detailed and lengthy. Elsevier's reputation as a trusted partner to the scientific community is also, of course, negatively impacted. Elsevier is committed to maintaining the research integrity and resolving the ethical cases, which is why we have rapidly expanded our research integrity and publishing ethics team over the past 2 years. Our team is comprised of a team of ethics experts who help advise on ad hoc ethical cases and take the lead on complex ethical case investigations. We are supported by ethics analysis and as well as the data science team, legal team, and editorial manager trust and transparency team internally. Our team's mission is to not only provide support in investigating and resolving these ethical cases, but also to help spread the awareness via seminars like this, or through our engagement with organizations like STM Association. We are also committed to developing more tools and resources that allow for proactive identification of ethical misconduct, both in-house and with external partners. This instead of our largely reactive investigatory role. For example, we have helped STM's Integrity Hub develop a paper mill detection tool. This tool, the minimum viable product, has recently been released, and we are testing it internally now. Okay, so next, let's look at what the role of editor, reviewer, author, and publisher plays in upholding the research integrity. First of all, we believe it is a shared responsibility to uphold integrity, whether we are acting as authors, editors, reviewers, publishers, or information consumers. This page lists the guiding principles for different roles in maintaining the research integrity. Editors are always at the heart of our ability to uphold these principles, and the reviewers also play a key role and share some responsibilities with editors in this regard. Editors and sometimes all reviewers should provide and uphold the fair and transparent editorial policies, encourage the trustful journal metrics. They need to assess the originality, validity, and significance of the author's research work, and need to conduct a fair and unbiased peer review and make a fair and unbiased decision. They should also ensure the previous work is acknowledged and also declare and manage on the conflicts of interest. Need to confirm that all ethical standards have been met, and also, if need, investigate unethical behavior by following the COPE guidelines. Authors are the key part of maintaining research integrity, and very often they are the first ones responsible for it. Authors should agree on the authorship between submitting the manuscript, and they must also ensure the access to and the retention of the data. Author must ensure that the article is original and that sources are correctly acknowledged. If there is a conflict of interest, it should always be declared. Authors need to ensure the integrity of the images and maintain the transparency of the clinical trial, and also disclose the use of the AI in the text and the artwork. Elsewhere, as a publisher, we're responsible for the guardianship of scholarly record and safeguarding the editorial independence and collaborating to set industry best practice and clear policies on the expected behavior. Also, we provide editor with the technical and procedural and legal support. Also, we educate researchers on publishing ethics. So next, I will introduce some of the common misconducts, each intentionally or unintentionally, but easily overlooked by the researchers. As an author, when planning your research and then drafting your study, there are quite a few important research integrity documentations to include, and this need particular care for those of you working with the human participants or animal subjects. For example, including the research agreements such as material or data agreement or trial registration, etc. And for the authorship or before submission of the paper, author need to ensure the order of the authorship and provide the full authorship affiliations and provide the credit statement, declare the conflict of interest, etc. And also need to make sure to gain the copyright permission if there are any reproduction of the figures or tables. And for the double-blinded peer-reviewed journal, please also always remember to provide the anonymized manuscript for peer review. As always, it is important to check the guide for authors to review any specific requirements around inclusion of the ethical statement, etc. Next is a matter of the authorship. You might have clear idea on where you would feature on the author list of your paper, but your supervisor or collaborators might think differently. It is important to decide well in advance of submitting your article or for the publication. But how do you decide this? So the International Committee of the Medical Journal Editors suggests the 4 authorship criteria, and which you can see on the left-hand side. So authors must have substantially contribute to the conception, design, or acquisition of the data, or analysis and interpretation of the data. Authors need to draft the article or revise it critically for important intellectual content, and give their approval of the final version to be published, and also need to agree to be held accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring all research integrity questions are investigated and resolved. Okay, so let's have a look at the authorship dispute and the changes. Including people as authors who do not meet the basic authorship criteria is a breach of ethical policy. Someone should only be included if they have been and approved the final version of the manuscript being submitted, and who can take the public responsibility for the articles of the content. Authorship should not be gifted to help out a colleague or student, and it definitely shouldn't be precharged. And if you and your colleagues get into an argument mid-submission or post-publication, it can result in delays to the work getting published, or expression of the concern about the work, or other corrections to the record, which could affect author's reputation. So we always emphasize that author need to think carefully and make sure everyone agrees before submitting of the paper. Okay, here is about data manipulation. Well, we have seen some examples of improper use of AI to generate fabricated results in image form. Data manipulation can range from the tampering with data sets in Excel and scrolling results toward more favorable outcomes in support of hypotheses, to falsifying error bars and statistical analysis. This unethical practice undermines the integrity of scientific research and can have serious negative consequences both for the scientific community and the society. A very practical example, which also discussed in this morning's panel discussion, come from the Andrew Wakefield's MMR vaccine study in 1998, which falsely claimed a link between the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine and autism. This led to a decline in the vaccination rates and subsequent outbreaks of preventable disease, putting the health of many individuals, especially the children, at risk. The cumulative impact of data falsification cases erodes trust in science and academia, which are built on the foundation of truth, integrity, and unbiased research. This can lead to the public skepticism, undermining the credibility of expert and scientific findings. This page focuses on plagiarism and textual overlap. I'm sure most of you would easily associate literal copying or verbatim copying as plagiarism. What about text recycling, or we call it self-plagiarism, and paraphrasing? While paraphrasing can text and text recycling might seem innocuous, but there are compelling reasons why we discourage this practice, even when authors are drawing from their own work. We believe the responsibilities of researchers is to bring the new and innovative ideas to their fields, promoting the originality and the creativity. But reusing content without adding new dimensions can reduce the impact of the work. And any unacknowledged reuse can mislead readers into thinking ideas are novel, compromising the integrity of scholarly work. And any incorrect citations from reused content can harm a work's credibility. Therefore, upholding academic integrity really demands transparently crediting the origins of the ideas. Text recycling might create an unfair advantage, making the authors seem more influential. So journals' anti-self-plagiarism policies can result in rejection or retraction for such papers. When evaluating suspected plagiarism, two key factors come into play. First, we think about did the author acknowledge the prior work, and second, whether the overlap is substantial. That is, making a judgment call on quality and quantity of the overlap. And please think about, do you think reusing your own prior text is acceptable in method session and in result discussion and conclusion sessions? Well, it is up to editors' discretion, I have to say. But the method session is likely the one section in which textual overlap is more tolerated if you clearly reference the original article. Overlap in the result discussion or conclusions are less accepted, as it might suggest a lack of the originality or novelty with the work presented in the paper at hand. Many editors would also argue that the introduction should also contain minimum overlap with earlier works, as the introduction is meant to set a scene for this current body of research. That is, what gaps were filled in this paper comparative to prior approaches. Similar to Turnitin used in the academic settings, all the submissions to Elsevier journals are run through iScientificate. Our editors can review the similarity check report, which compares text in the manuscript to other publications, website, and so on, and color codes any sections of the text which have a match to other sources. We utilize this report to help gauge the quantity and the quality of the overlap. We appreciate the challenges that present for the non-native English speakers and the authors, and may recommend use of a professional language editing service before processing to the peer review. But as the generative AI tools become more popular, authors may elect to use these tools to improve the English language of their manuscript. However, as with any language editing software or service, it is important that authors need carefully review the suggested edits to ensure the underlying meaning of their manuscript is not altered. As an additional point of caution, paper mills have often utilized spin boats to assist with paraphrasing. However, this leads to the introduction of non-essential phrases, some examples of which are shown here on the right-hand side. These are often picked up by the cabinet's problematic paper screener and then highlighted in the paper. The manuscripts presenting the same research should not be published in more than one journal. The author has a responsibility to ensure that they are submitting the top quality, well-written, and original research work. By submitting and resubmitting an original work, an author is wasting the editor's time while not advancing the front of science. Duplication of papers across journals in different languages should be avoided as well for the same reasons. But it is acceptable to have an article translated into other languages to broaden the reach. But in case, of course, the permission needs to be given by the original publication and need to have appropriate acknowledgement in the translated version. Slicing one's research work into smaller sub-papers is also a manipulation of the research and the publishing process. And conversely, papers also cannot be withdrawn because authors have new data and want to rework the published paper to include the new findings. Okay, so what about simultaneous submissions? Can you submit your paper to multiple journals at the same time? The answer is no. When you submit your paper in addition to certifying that it has not been previously published, you also ascribe that it is not under consideration for publication elsewhere. Aside from the redundancy in the peer review and the actuarial resources, if both papers get accepted and published, we find ourselves in a duplicate or redundant publication situation, which breaches publishing ethics, as we just described. And once the version of record and the copyright has been sorted between the affected journals, at least one of the papers would need to be retracted, which can have negative consequences on author and the journal's reputations. And what if the author have posted the paper on a preprint server? Would that be considered duplicate publication? The answer is no. Elsevier's policy allows for responsible sharing on the preprint servers. The best practice is to include the full disclosure during the submission process. Let's have a look at the image manipulation. There are legitimate ways to alter images used in author's figures. If we take the example here of the Western blot, it is perfectly acceptable to adjust the brightness, contrast, or color balance of the image for reasons of clarity, but only as long as those changes are applied evenly to the whole image, and as long as they do not obscure or eliminate any information in the original image. You can't change the brightness or contrast in order to hide bands of artifacts, and you can't selectively remove features from the image, such as the band being blurred out in the example 2. And you can't splice or add in features to form a different image or use image alternations to disguise them. Only use what is necessary for the clarity. And as publisher, we do use the image fluorescence tools to identify the irregularities and duplications within the figures. Let's talk about a bit conflicts of interest. Sometimes people can trip up when making appropriate declarations around conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest or competing interest means a set of conditions in which professional judgment concerning a primary interest may be influenced by a secondary interest. So that's why I need to disclose. The declaration of interest or disclosure statement is a statement from the author that there is no financial or personal interest or belief that could affect their objectivity, or if there is, stating the source and the nature of that potential conflict. This is just not for authors, but the reviewers and other editors must also disclose any of the conflicts of interest, such as the same institution or a prior working relationship or co-authorship with the journal editor at the time of the invitation. Elsevier has developed a declarations tool to help authors step by step through the process of preparing well-considered and ICMJE compliant statement. Now, conflicts of interest actually can take many forms. So we can look at on the left-hand side and think about if this would be a conflict of interest. First, a university researcher who owns the stock in a large oil company conducts an experiment on the environmental effects of the oil drilling. Second, a researcher submits an article to a journal for which the editor-in-chief is a professor in the researcher's department. Third, a clinical researcher is writing a review of current and emerging treatment for a particular medical condition, but exclude mention of a new treatment because it does not align with his or her personal religious beliefs. So I'm sure you have made your own judgment already. Actually, this would all be conflicts of interest. But as long as you are honest about them, declare them, and allow the editor and reviewers to assess whether it is likely that it has unduly influenced the work, it may not be a problem. Let's see the citation manipulation. There are 3 types of citation manipulation, including the coercive citations, citation stacking, and the citation stuffing. Coercive citations means when the citation is made a condition for having an article accepted in a journal, usually come from editor or reviewer. Citation stacking means excessive citation of the work of another author or journal, just solely to contribute to the citation of the authors or journals. Citation stuffing means adding a large number of citations at the revision stage that are independent of relevance to the subject at hand or recommended requirements. So please think about how many red flags here. One red flag, 2, 3, or maybe more. So let's first read the letter. So this is the letter from the editor-in-chief to the author. In the letter, editor-in-chief mentioned that, thank you for submitting the paper to journal ABCD. And in the last sentence, you can see your paper is likely to be accepted pending all the changes are made as individual indicated below. So in this example, we have highlighted actually 4 red flags from both the reviewer and editor-in-chief of the journal ABCD. The blue box demonstrates citation stacking. In this case, the reviewer recommends a series of publications of himself or herself. A second red flag is the generic mention and reference to leading papers without indicating specifically why the referee feels these works should be included. That is why a lack of inclusion would present a problem and at which specific instance in the paper. If you as author will add all of this manuscript without justification at the time of the revision, you could be implicated in citation stuffing. The third red flag, citation correction, comes from the part of the editor in implying that the references must be included in order to be considered for publication. Our general policy is that editors should not alter referees' comments. However, they should provide clarification in their decision letters as to which of the recommendations should be taken under consideration. In this scenario, the editor should indicate that authors may review the suggested references, however, are not obligated to add unless they agree with the relevance. The fourth red flag presents a second type of citation stacking in which the editor and reviewer might be working together to artificially inflate the impact factor of the journal, given that the last 4 references are all papers published in the journal at hand, that is journal ABCD. So as an author, what are your rights? Are you required to add in these references? The answer, of course, is no. If you suspect editor and reviewer collusion, you can flag this with the manager of the journal for a formal investigation. But just to be clear that we are not saying that you as author can't reference your own prior work or add in unintentionally missed references at the time of revision. However, it is your responsibility to have read those papers and made a scientific judgment that they do support your research methodologies and help to draw conclusions and highlight the advancement of your research over prior studies. Editors and reviewers are responsible for maintaining the confidentiality. Reviewers are not permitted to communicate directly with authors. Comments should be entered via the submission platform, not by phone, not by email. And the shared responsibility for the review of the manuscript with a colleague must be disclosed to the editors. And all the manuscripts and materials must be treated confidentially. We talked about the AI a lot of today, and this is really a hot topic now. With the rapid development of the AI technology, we have also formulated relevant policies. So you can see here, as author, you should only use AI and AI-assisted technologies to improve readability and the language of the work. If applying the technology, that should be done with the human oversight. And we request authors to disclose in their manuscript the use of AI and AI-assisted technologies, and a statement will appear in the published work. Authors should not list AI and AI-assisted technologies as an author or co-author. Also should not cite AI as an author. Authors are ultimately responsible and accountable for the contents of the work. For the figures, images, and artwork, Elsevier does not permit the use of generative AI or AI-assisted tools to create or alter the images or use in the production of artwork, for example, journal covers or graphical abstracts. The only exception is if the use of AI or AI-assisted tools is part of the research design or research method. In order to maintain the manuscript's confidentiality, the editors and the reviewers should not upload a manuscript or any part of the manuscript into any public generative AI tool, and also should not upload their peer review report into a public AI tool, even if it is just for the purpose of improving of the language and readability. Elsevier developed many policies, procedures, and the resources for our researchers to follow. We provide very clear guidance for authors, editors, reviewers via the publishing ethics policy webpage. And also we have a webpage called the Publishing Ethics Resources Key website. We suggest our editors to follow that guidelines to investigate any allegations. We also offer related certified courses to our editors, reviewers, and authors via the Researcher Academy platform and for free. And Elsevier has also participated in Committee on Publication Ethics, we call it COPE, and the STM Association, and advise on the policy creation and share learnings and develop the new tools. There are different tools also integrated in our submission platforms, such as the ORCID peer review integration and Find the Reviewer tool to help identify potential reviewers without any conflict of interest. Okay, so let's now see which correction method we use to correct a scientific record. It is our duty to initiate corrections to the scientific record. When honest and minor mistakes have been identified, we will issue an erratum if this error was introduced by Elsevier, that is, for example, the typesetting error, or issue a corrigendum if the error was introduced by the authors and does not change the underlying results or conclusions drawn. Most of the ethical violations discussed today would result in a retraction of the paper. But note that retraction does not mean your paper will be removed from the ScienceDirect platform. Rather than when readers open the file, they will see the retraction notice that indicates the outcomes of our investigations. But the PDF article also remains online, but with a retraction watermark issued on each page. When the large-scale investigations may take time for resolution, we consider publish a temporary notice called expression of concern. Very rarely, if, for example, where the article is defamatory or violates privacy or could endanger the life, we will remove the article. Withdraw an article mainly used for the article's in press status articles or for the production errors, for example, duplicate publication. Our journal editors always sit in the position to make ultimate decision and approve the text of the correction. And all of the corrections to the record must be submitted to and approved by our retraction and removal panel to ensure all the appropriate steps have been taken. Additionally, depending on the severity and the type of the case, we may need to notify authors, institution, and or the funding agency for assistance or awareness. And for more serious infractions, the researcher may no longer be considered eligible to serve on our editorial boards or as a reviewer. Okay, so that's all for today's presentation, and I hope this is helpful. Thank you. Oops.
Thank you so much to Ms. Shanshan Qu for your contribution to our workshop today. Ms. Xi here had joined us from all the way from Beijing, and her addition had been enlightening in terms of research integrity in the publication business. It is truly heartwarming to see such a high standard of ethics held in various fields of academic as well. And finally, we have journeyed into the end of today's workshop on research integrity. To end the day on a positive note, Assistant Professor Dr. Thirayut Wilaiwan will be addressing a closing speech to you all. Please welcome.
'Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank all of you who stay until the end of the workshop, and I hope that you've learned something and you have create your new network. And if that has been achieved, I think the purpose of this workshop is already fulfilled. So with this, I would like to declare the end of the workshop on research integrity in Thailand, and please join me to thank all the speakers today again. So have a safe trip back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Professor Dr. Thirayut Wilaiwan. And as we conclude the day, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our distinguished academics, participants, and everyone who contributed to the success of this event. Together, we can make a significant impact on research integrity, not only in Thailand, but on a global scale. Thank you all for your presence and engagement today. Let's continue to foster research integrity in the years to come.